Seriously, was it the life-sized skeletal pirate fighting a zombie flamingo that finally tipped Mrs. Henderson over the edge? Because I thought the one doing a cannonball into the inflatable pool was pure genius. I mean, come on. A skeleton doing a bicep curl with a plastic pumpkin in one hand and simultaneously taking a selfie with the other? That's not just decor, that's social commentary on the modern fitness obsession. My name is Jake, and my house sits in the middle of a perfectly manicured, aggressively beige suburban neighborhood in the good old US of A. We don't have mountains here. We have HOA rules, and we have Patrice Henderson. Halloween, for me, isn't a day, it's a season. And by season, I mean from October 1st until Thanksgiving, minimum. This year, my masterpiece, The Osteology of Excess, featured 13 plastic, yet anatomically correct, skeletons. They weren't just standing there, they were living. They were barbecuing, doing yoga, riding a tandem bicycle. The pirate, Barnaby, don't ask, was locked in eternal combat with the flamingo, a piece I titled The Fight Against Tropical Invasive Species. Pure genius. It was 10:15 a.m. on November 1st. I was sipping my second cup of coffee, contemplating the deep philosophical meaning of leaving my entire display up for at least one more day, mostly because I was too lazy to climb the ladder, when the unwelcome shadow darkened my porch. Knock, knock. 2 crisp, impatient raps. I opened the door to find Patrice Henderson, the reigning champion of neighborhood busybodies, standing there. She wasn't wearing a costume, which was a shame, because she missed the chance to go as a sentient, aggressively tailored twin set. She held a laminated clipboard, always laminated, always a clipboard, and a single, folded piece of paper. "Mr. Harding," she began, her voice brittle enough to snap, "I trust you had an enjoyable holiday." I leaned against the doorframe. "Patrice, you know I did. Barnaby the pirate really found his rhythm this year. Did you happen to notice his flawless lateral lunge? A testament to balanced gluteal engagement." She didn't even flinch. I noticed the grotesque display of exposed bone structures that remained up past the permissible midnight hour. I also noticed the distinct lack of a permit for outdoor structures exceeding 3 feet in height on non-designated holiday dates. She extended the paper like it was a biohazard. I took the notice. It was printed on pink paper, naturally, and listed 2 offenses: seasonal holiday display nuisance, and my personal favorite, grave offense to community standards. "Grave offense, huh?" I murmured, scanning the atrocious font choices. "Sounds serious. Did you consult a crypt keeper on that phrasing, Patrice?" "I consulted the bylaws, Jake. You have 24 hours to cure this violation before the Town Code Enforcement Department is formally notified. Your display, frankly, is appalling." She marched off without waiting for a reply, leaving me standing there, pink notice in hand. I looked out at Barnaby, who, despite his ongoing battle, seemed to be smiling his skeletal smile. "Appalling?" I thought. "No, Patrice. This is just the beginning. The first step in any war against bureaucracy is always research." I spent the next 3 hours hunched over my laptop, fueled by lukewarm coffee and pure, unadulterated spite, digging through the town's municipal code and the HOA's deeply confusing 97-page manifesto. The key phrase, the whole rotten foundation of Patrice's complaint, was seasonal holiday decor. The code stated that seasonal holiday decor, including lighting and non-living figures, must be removed no later than November 15th. However, if the display was deemed a permanent residential structure or a work of art, it fell under different, much looser zoning regulations. I realized I wasn't fighting an aesthetic battle. I was fighting a semantic one. And semantics? I'm surprisingly good at those when fueled by vengeance. I needed an outside opinion, a voice of reason, or in my case, a voice of highly intellectualized mockery. I called my friend Leo, who is supposedly studying for a Juris Doctor degree, but mostly just plays competitive video games and talks about Nietzsche. "Hey man, big trouble. Pink paper trouble," I said as soon as he picked up. "Pink paper? Oh God. Patrice is escalating. Did she cite the inflatable dragon with the Santa hat?" Worse. She cited the entire display. Grave offense to community standards. Apparently I broke the midnight rule. "Dude, just take down the zombie flamingo. She wins," Leo sighed, sounding like a man who has already lost too many skirmishes to the suburban warfare machine. "No, Leo. She doesn't just get to ruin the vertebral column alignment study I set up on the patio chaise. This isn't about losing. This is about making a statement that is so fundamentally ridiculous, yet legally airtight, that she explodes into a mist of bad beige fabric and cheap perfume." "You're talking about litigation over plastic bones, Jake?" "I'm talking about artistic integrity, Leo. Listen to the code. It bans seasonal holiday decor. I need to prove that my skeletons are not decor." Leo laughed, a dry, hacking smoker's cough that meant his brain was working. "Okay, so what are they? Educational models? Did you slap little labels on the ribs?" "They are anatomically correct. I bought them from a science supply store, not Spirit Halloween. They're medical-grade plastic, I swear. I could teach a first-year biology class with these guys." "All right, so they're educational. That's better than decor. But better still? Make them art." I paused. The sound of my own quickening heartbeat was louder than the dial tone. "Art? Yeah, man. Conceptual anatomical sculpture. You're protesting the fleeting nature of modern consumerism by showcasing the enduring permanence of the human frame. You title them things like The Triumph of the Supinator Muscle, 2025, and boom, you're untouchable. You get First Amendment protection. You get to be pretentious. You get to keep the bones up. It's a win-win-win." The sarcasm was thick enough to chew, but the spark ignited. Leo was a sarcastic genius. "Leo," I said, my voice low and reverent. "You magnificent bastard, you just solved my life problem. I'm just giving you the philosophical framework to be a petty jerk. Go forth and curate, Jake. Go forth and curate." I hung up the phone and looked out the window. Barnaby the pirate was still fighting his flamingo. But now he wasn't just a pirate. He was the contemplation of the carpal bones in conflict with feathered mortality. I immediately got to work, transforming my yard from a post-Halloween mess into a high-concept open-air gallery. I started composing my formal, snarky reply to Patrice and the HOA. I spent a full hour drafting the language, ensuring every sentence was dripping with intellectual superiority. Subject: Code violation, 2025-11-01. Seasonal holiday display. Nuisance. To Patrice Henderson and the esteemed members of the Architectural Review Board, I acknowledge receipt of your notice regarding the temporary classification of the installation currently located on my property at 1234 Primrose Lane. With all due respect, the premise of your violation is fundamentally flawed. The display in question ceased being seasonal holiday decor immediately upon its repositioning at 12:01 a.m., November 1st, 2025. What you are currently viewing is the initial phase of my permanent, site-specific work, the Suburban Osteology Series. This series is a protected, three-dimensional mixed-media installation utilizing medical-grade polymer human skeletal models to conduct an ongoing, open-air study of dynamic tension and anatomical form. Specifically, 1. The pirate figure is now the lunge of the Latissimus dorsi, a commentary on posture and piracy, 2025. 2. The flamingo model, while not strictly anatomical, serves as a crucial artistic counterpoint, symbolizing the fragility of the natural world against the permanence of the human structure, titled Feathered Mortality, a study in pink. As this is now a permanent educational and artistic installation and not decor, it is protected under the First Amendment rights of artistic expression and falls outside the scope of seasonal holiday display ordinances. Please direct all future inquiries regarding my exhibition to my designated legal advisor, Leo Esquedo, pending bar exam results, or refer to Title IX, Section 3A of the Town Code concerning protected structures. Your prompt correction of the record is anticipated. Sincerely, Jake Harding, Curator. The Suburban Osteology Series I hit send. It was 1498 words worth of pure, exhilarating legalistic rebellion. The mission was clear. The skeletons were staying. And they were going to look really educated doing it. The transformation from post-Halloween junk heap to high-concept gallery needed one thing: pretense. And pretense, my friends, requires a shopping trip. I headed straight for the craft store, walking past the forlorn remnants of the Thanksgiving aisle. My cart quickly filled with the required supplies: a bolt of cheap, faded velvet fabric for draping, some mini gold-painted plastic chains for barriers, and, crucially, a stack of small, tasteful, yet completely unnecessary brass plaques. Then a quick run to the hardware store for some sleek, low-voltage halogen spotlights. If you're going to be pretentious, you must be well lit. The installation process itself took the rest of the afternoon. It was painstaking work, applying a curator's eye to what had previously been a drunk guy's yard. First, the staging. I moved the skeleton from the barbecue, now titled The Rigor of Ribs, a study in culinary endurance, and placed him on a small, elevated wooden box, draping the velvet fabric underneath like some kind of ancient, sacred shroud. I positioned a single halogen lamp to cast dramatic shadows, highlighting his superior parietal bone. The most crucial step was the naming. I typed up the titles onto the brass plaques using the most convoluted language possible. The skeleton previously doing a bicep curl was now the dynamic tension of the deltoid, lumbar curve in ascent. Word count, 18 words. Pretentiousness level, maximum. The one leaning casually against the mailbox became The Humorous in Repose, a post-structuralist reading of the everyday grind. Barnaby the Pirate and his flamingo, now formally anchored to the deck railing, were renamed A Study of the Femoral Neck in Late Capitalism, The Folly of Material Conflict. The visual humor was key. I added little details. The skeleton doing yoga now had a tiny antique monocle perched on his orbit socket, looking like he was pondering his own mortality while holding a warrior pose. I even printed out fake exhibition guides and placed them in a waterproof box next to the driveway. I was finishing up, adjusting a spotlight on the rigor of ribs, when I heard the low, unmistakable whine of Patrice's silver sedan. She did a slow, clinical approach down the street. She passed my house, braked hard, and then slowly reversed, pulling her sedan into the driveway across the street, where she sat, staring. I decided to engage. As the curator. I walked down my own driveway, adjusting the invisible cuff of my non-existent tweed jacket. "Patrice, I called out cheerfully. Just in time. I was about to break for a chilled water. Would you care for a private viewing? She rolled down her window, her face frozen in a mask of controlled fury. What in heaven's name have you done, Jake? Done? I've optimized, dear lady. I've elevated. I've curated a public anatomical exhibition. It's an educational opportunity for the community. Those are plastic skeletons, positioned in provocative ways, with ridiculous titles written on gold foil. I put a hand to my chest, feigning offense. Provocative? I assure you, the humorous in repose is modeled on Rodin's The Thinker, a classic pose of deep contemplation. And they are not plastic skeletons. They are medical-grade polymer osteological models, and they are essential to my site-specific installation. It's a loophole! You're mocking the spirit of the code, she hissed. Ah, but Patrice, I replied, leaning slightly toward her car window. In the realm of conceptual art, mocking the spirit of the code is often the highest form of expression. I'm citing Duchamp, actually. Think of this as my fountain, but with more hip sockets. I invite you to read the exhibition guide. It outlines the educational benefits for the children of the community, who can now visualize the importance of the fibula without the inconvenience of a trip to a medical museum. Her mouth opened, then closed. She was sputtering, a sight as beautiful as any sunset. She finally jammed her car into drive, peeling out of the driveway and leaving a small trail of gravel dust, defeated by my overly verbose invitation and the sheer, unexpected escalation of my pretension. The skeletons, now art, seemed to shimmer under their new halogen spotlights. The town code enforcement department, bless their hearts, apparently didn't have a division dedicated to conceptual anatomical sculptures. So, a week later, they did what any bureaucratic entity does when faced with an unsolvable problem. They called the police. I was enjoying my morning coffee, reading a truly magnificent comment on the local neighborhood Facebook group. Jake Harding is either a genius or needs a full neurological workup. But either way, those bones are staying. When the familiar sound of a police siren, quickly dying down to a polite, suburban hum, drifted into my yard. 2 officers emerged from the cruiser. Officer Davis, a man who looked like he'd been doing this job since the Nixon administration and had seen one too many neighborhood disputes, and Officer Chen, a rookie whose face was struggling valiantly not to crack into a smile. I immediately adopted the curator persona, walking to the edge of my lawn to greet them before they could even step on the grass. "Ah, officers, welcome," I said, my voice warm and inviting. "I assume you're here for the mandatory Code 41.B review? Or perhaps you're interested in the metacarpal's lament. It's currently in its early dynamic phase." Officer Davis, unimpressed, held up a hand. "Mr. Harding, we're responding to a complaint of, and I have to read this verbatim, anatomically graphic, non-seasonal display, and public nuisance. We just need to verify the nature of the items." "I'd be happy to verify the nature of the items, officer. I insist. Please, follow me," began my tour. I led them straight to the skeleton that was originally the zombie flamingo fighter, now a study of the femoral neck in late capitalism. "As you can see here," I explained, gesturing grandly, "this piece is a profound commentary on the structural fragility of modern finance. Note the angle of the femur, officer. It demonstrates a critical stress point, much like the leverage ratios of a subprime mortgage. The flamingo, now, is the market volatility." Officer Davis just looked at me. His eyes were saying, "I have literally seen it all." "Mr. Harding, the complaint is that you have Halloween decorations up in November." "With respect, Officer Davis, the classification of these pieces is the crux of the matter. Are you aware of the definition of decor in the municipal code? It is defined as a temporary element intended to enhance a seasonal celebration. My installation is permanent, it is educational, and it is designed to provoke intellectual discourse, not enhance a celebration. It's a conceptual sculpture. Officer Chen, the rookie, coughed slightly, trying to stifle a laugh. Davis tried a different tack. They are skeletons, Mr. Harding. They are disturbing to certain neighbors. That falls under public nuisance. Public nuisance, officer? Or protected expression? I countered smoothly. The law is clear on the protection of artistic and educational displays, unless you are arguing that a museum exhibit of human anatomy is a public nuisance. Your complaint is invalid. In fact, these specific polymer models were sourced from the same supplier used by many community college anatomy labs across the United States. I can provide the invoice if you wish to verify their academic pedigree. Davis was starting to sweat. This was definitely not covered in the community policing handbook. Are you claiming to be an art professor, sir? I am claiming to be a curator, officer. And as a private citizen in the United States, I have the right to display objects of artistic and educational merit on my property. Are these skeletons obscenely posed? No. Are they biologically accurate? Yes. Are they seasonal? According to the new title plaques, no. I gestured to the brass tag. This is a year-round exhibit, officer. It is dynamic and ever-changing, reflecting the ebb and flow of suburban existence. Next week, the humorous in repose might be moved to ponder the intricacies of the water meter. He sighed, running a hand across his forehead. Look, the code says no decorations after November 15th. We are here on November 7th. If we come back after the 15th, and they're still up, we have to issue a citation for failure to comply with removal. Ah, but there's the loophole, officer. The statute only bans seasonal decor. It does not ban educational artistic sculptures. Tell me, Officer Davis. I leaned in conspiratorially. Are you a certified art critic? No. Are you a licensed physician or anatomist? No. Then with all due respect, on what grounds can you definitively rule on the quality or accuracy of this educational display, thus reclassifying it as mere decor? I had him. I could see the defeat in his eyes. He realized the vast, swampy legal territory I had dragged him into. He couldn't issue a citation unless he could prove my artistic intent was fraudulent, and I had invoices, official-looking plaques, and the unwavering confidence of a petty man. Officer Davis exchanged a long look with Officer Chen. All right, Mr. Harding, we're going to document this as a referral to code enforcement for an architectural and zoning review. This is outside our purview. He started walking back to the cruiser. Officer Chen, as he passed, couldn't resist. He stopped, glanced at the skeleton doing the yoga pose, and whispered to me, "Just between you and me, that guy's alignment on the sacrum of Sisyphus is actually pretty decent." "Thank you, Officer Chen," I whispered back. "A fellow connoisseur." They drove off. Victory was mine, at least for the moment. But I knew code enforcement was coming, and they would demand permanence. I needed to make my art literally immovable. A few days after the cop interaction, which, by the way, made it onto a local Neighbors Behaving Badly Facebook page, code enforcement sent me a stern, official letter. They conceded that the display was technically not decor, but since I claimed it was a permanent installation, it needed to adhere to zoning regulations for outdoor structures. Specifically, my art needed to be structurally anchored and permitted. This was the perfect bureaucratic trap. I needed a professional to validate my absurdity. I needed a contractor. Contractor 1. Rick the Cynic. Rick showed up first. He was gruff, wearing a stained Carhartt jacket and chewing on an unlit cigar. He took one look at the Suburban Osteology series and spat. "What the hell is this, kid?" he asked, folding his arms. "This, Rick, is conceptual anatomical sculpture," I said, handing him a printed diagram of where I wanted the rebar anchors to go. "I need you to drill titanium rods up the butt of these models and cement the base into custom-built, spot-lit pedestals." Rick removed the cigar. "Let me get this straight. You want me to drill a titanium rod up the butt of a $50 plastic skeleton and cement it into a $300 custom base? Look, pal, I do decks. I build sheds. I patch roofs. I don't do dioramas." "It's not a diorama, Rick. It's an installation. The anchoring represents the human quest for structural permanence in an impermanent world. It's symbolic. It's a Halloween prank gone sideways, and you need to pay someone way too much money to get you out of it." He pulled out his phone, typed for a moment, and showed me the screen. "My fee for performing high-concept anatomical installations is $8,000, payable in advance. That's my go-away quote. $8,000? Yep. That's the price of my professional integrity being compromised by plastic bones. Good luck." He got in his truck and drove away. Rick had zero tolerance for my genius. Contractor 2, Sarah the Philosopher. Sarah arrived next. She was young, wearing safety goggles perched on her head, and seemed genuinely confused. I decided to lean heavily into the academic angle. "Mr. Harding, I received your request for permanent conceptual anchor installation. I'm a little unclear on the foundation requirements." "Ah, Sarah, the foundation is everything," I said, walking her over to the lunge of the latissimus dorsi. "The load-bearing stresses here are minimal, as the piece is primarily concerned with form, not mass. But the anchoring must be resolute. It must suggest permanence." "Right. So the rebar anchors, is that meant to represent the limitations of the skeletal structure, or are we just going for sheer tensile strength against high winds?" She was actually trying to understand the metaphor. My God. "Both, Sarah. But mostly, yes. Tensile strength. The legal tensile strength, you see. I need to be able to tell code enforcement that this structure meets or exceeds all requirements for permanency." She tapped her chin with a pen. "And the aesthetic requirement of the concrete base? Do you want a raw, brutalist finish? Or something more minimalist, perhaps with an aggregate exposure to reflect the granular nature of societal breakdown?" "Minimalist, please! White cement! To contrast with the bone." Sarah spent 20 minutes taking measurements, writing down notes that looked suspiciously like sociology thesis points, and muttering about the ethics of site-specific art. She promised an estimate in 48 hours, but disappeared forever into the void of philosophical contracting. Contractor 3. Marvin, the enthusiast/opportunist. Then came Marvin. Marvin was built like a retired wrestler and drove a beat-up van covered in rust. He didn't even knock. He just walked straight onto the lawn, grinning. "Jake, right? Marvin." He didn't shake my hand. He just pointed at a halogen lamp. "Is that an old GE 250? Nice light." "Thanks, Marvin. You interested in anchoring a conceptual sculpture?" Marvin gave me a knowing look. "I'm interested in anything that gets me on the news. I saw the local blog post. Jake Harding, suburban provocateur. That's gold, buddy. Pure gold. And you need me to make it legal." The dialogue that followed was a masterclass in opportunistic synergy. Marvin wasn't interested in the art. He was interested in the spectacle. "I'll do it for $4 grand, Jake," Marvin said. "But you gotta let me put my sticker on the base of the humerus in repose." "Absolutely not," I said immediately. "That ruins the aesthetic integrity. The piece speaks for itself." "Fine. I'll make the base. Extra fancy." We'll use marine-grade stainless steel anchors, embed them in structural foam, and then cover it with a polished granite tile. And I'll file the permit paperwork myself, but you gotta mention Marvin's magnificent metalwork when the news comes back." "Done," I said, shaking his hand. "You, Marvin, are a visionary." "Nah, I'm just a guy who knows how to monetize neighborhood drama." Marvin was the one. He understood the stakes. He drew up an invoice, and under the description, it didn't say yard work or concrete pouring. It said, "Conceptual installation fees, art structure fabrication, and town permit application. Pending." That receipt and that permit application, submitted by a licensed professional, were the anchor I truly needed, literally and figuratively. My artistic defense was now officially a structural, legal reality. Marvin got to work. In 3 days, he anchored 5 skeletons into 5 gorgeous granite-tiled pedestals, complete with tiny inspection stamps on the side. My lawn now looked less like a quirky Halloween display and more like a poorly funded, highly specific Soviet-era sculpture garden. The local reaction went from a chuckle to a full-blown sensation. The news vans did, in fact, return, and my neighbor Patrice Henderson became an unintentional B-list antagonist. The comments section of the local online paper, the Primrose Press, was a chaotic blend of outrage and support. I would read them out loud to my newly cemented skeletal audience. "This man is a menace. My children are terrified. Where is the decency? #property values." I drove past this morning. The one doing the selfie is a masterpiece. I'm calling my insurance agent to see if I can classify my bird bath as a post-avian abstract fountain to stick it to the HOA. It's not art, it's garbage, and that Jake Harding is clearly just lazy. No, Anonymous 44, it is art. The laziness is the point. It's a critique of the disposable consumer culture that dictates what we must and must not enjoy. Go Jake! 10-10. The neighborhood itself became a battleground of whispered dialogue. One evening, Mrs. Rodriguez, who lives 3 houses down and has a truly incredible collection of garden gnomes, came over, carrying a plate of chocolate chip cookies. "Jake, honey," she whispered, eyes darting to make sure Patrice wasn't watching from her perfectly shaded window. "These are for you. They're excellent. You're doing God's work." "Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez." "Are you admiring the rigor of ribs?" "It's not the ribs, dear. It's the sheer chutzpah of it all. Patrice has been insufferable since the Tulip Standards meeting in '08. Someone had to stand up to her, and I'm so glad it was you. The gnome community is very grateful." She gave me a conspiratorial wink and scurried back home. But the true drama arrived with Mr. Peterson. Mr. Peterson, a man whose entire personality was built around his lawns, perfect pH balance, stomped across my lawn one afternoon. "Harding, this is an absolute disgrace," he shouted, pointing a manicured finger at the humorous in repose. "Mr. Peterson, I welcome your critique. Are you approaching the piece from a Marxist or a post-colonial perspective?" I asked, holding my ground. "I'm approaching it from a property value perspective. It's tacky. It's grotesque. It looks like a cheap roadside haunted house. My realtor says I might have to drop my asking price if this boneyard is still here when I sell." "Sir, you are missing the profound irony of the piece," I exclaimed, adopting a pained artist's voice. "The humorous in repose is a meditation on the fleeting nature of material wealth. If your property value drops, it simply confirms the core socio-economic critique embedded in the work. It's a performance piece, and frankly, the fact that a few ounces of medical polymer can so disrupt the perceived value of your colonial revival, that, sir, is my magnum opus." "You're insane!" he yelled, throwing his hands up. "No, I'm an artist. and I am citing the legal definition of sculpture and the necessity of public anatomical education. Go read the code enforcement referral, Peterson. This is permanent." He retreated, defeated by my overly complex vocabulary. But Patrice, ever the mastermind, wasn't done. The next day, a large, intimidating envelope arrived via certified mail, addressed to the owner, 1234 Primrose Lane. Inside was a formal summons to the Town Hall Code Enforcement hearing. Patrice had hired a professional, a semi-retired, overly formal HOA lawyer named Mr. Sterling. The new charge wasn't decor or nuisance. It was violation of residential setback requirements and operation of an unauthorized commercial display. Mr. Sterling had taken my art claim and weaponized it, trying to shut down the installation using zoning laws. The stakes were raised. The town hall showdown was set. My defense preparation was epic. I spent 2 days crafting the perfect presentation, a bizarre hybrid of high school history report and conceptual art school lecture. I prepared oversized, blurry PowerPoint slides, one of Michelangelo's David next to one of my skeleton doing a bicep curl, one of a Mondrian painting next to the neatly arranged rib cage of the rigor of ribs. Each slide had a pretentious quote from a dead philosopher. The day of the hearing arrived. The setting was the stuffy, poorly lit town hall, a room that smelled faintly of old coffee and defeated dreams. The panel consisted of 3 people: Ms. Albright, the head of code enforcement, a weary middle manager who looked like she wished she worked anywhere else; Mr. Jenkins, a zoning guy who looked deeply confused; and sitting menacingly to the side, Patrice Henderson, dressed in a sharp, corporate black suit, flanked by her lawyer, Mr. Sterling. I walked in, wearing my cleanest flannel and an air of detached, artistic superiority. Mr. Sterling began the prosecution. He was dry, technical, and devastatingly boring. "Members of the board," he droned, adjusting his tie. "We are not here today to debate the aesthetic value, or lack thereof, of Mr. Harding's display. We are here to enforce the town's zoning code. By anchoring these structures permanently, he has created 5 unauthorized, non-permitted permanent structures in clear violation of the 15-foot residential setback requirement." He then addressed my commercial argument. Furthermore, Mr. Harding's assertion that this is an educational exhibit qualifies this as a non-residential, quasi-commercial enterprise. We submit evidence of his own promotional materials, the exhibition guides, and the fact that his name is now listed on several non-profit art blogs. This is an unauthorized gallery. Patrice then took the floor for her emotional testimony, delivering a monologue full of hyperbole. This desecration of community values is tearing our street apart. My guests are appalled. The children are asking difficult questions about bone structure. He is turning our beautiful, tranquil neighborhood into a sideshow. It must be removed." Finally, it was my turn. I took the stand, refusing to sit down. "Good morning. Please refer to me as the curator for the duration of this hearing," I began, adjusting my non-existent monocle. "I thank the panel for allowing me to defend the integrity of the Suburban Osteology series." I clicked to my first PowerPoint slide. A blurry picture of a study of the femoral neck in late capitalism. Mr. Sterling has brilliantly articulated the legalistic framework, but has failed entirely to grasp the philosophical truth. This is not a violation, it is a critique. The fact that my skeletal model, a representation of the enduring human form, is now being legally harassed by the residential setback requirements is precisely the point of the piece. I paused for dramatic effect. Ms. Albright just stared blankly. "We are not just debating a few ounces of painted plastic, sir," I continued, my voice rising passionately. "We are debating the right of the suburban body to exist in space. We are debating whether a homeowner can elevate the discourse on the osteology of consumerism without bureaucratic interference. It is a testament to the skeletal system's endurance against the fleeting tyranny of the HOA." I spent 5 glorious minutes using words like semiotics, postmodern, and existential dread. I was unstoppable. Then, the final blow. "And regarding the accusation of unauthorized permanent structures, I submit Exhibit A." I presented Marvin's invoice and the official town hall receipt for the art structure fabrication permit application. This permanent installation was anchored by a licensed contractor, Mr. Marvin Jensen, and the necessary permit application for a sculptural structure was filed with this very town hall 3 days ago. It is currently pending review by the zoning board. Mr. Sterling jumped up. "Objection! That permit is not approved." "It is not denied either, Mr. Sterling," I shot back. "It is pending. And until the zoning board has concluded its architectural review of the conceptual anchors, my installation cannot be ordered removed, as it is following due process for the establishment of a permanent legally submitted structure." The panel went silent. Ms. Albright looked at Mr. Jenkins, who shrugged helplessly. They were beaten by their own bureaucracy. Ms. Albright finally smacked her gavel. "Given the submission of a permit application for a structural installation, and the ambiguity regarding the classification of the display as artistic or commercial, the committee cannot issue a definitive removal order at this time. The hearing is deferred pending the conclusion of the zoning board's architectural review of the conceptual anchors." A collective gasp came from Patrice. I smiled at her. Bureaucratic victory. The skeleton stayed indefinitely. I walked out of the town hall like a conquering hero, leaving a fuming Mr. Sterling trying to explain to Patrice Henderson why conceptual anchors were now a legal impediment. When I arrived back on Primrose Lane, I found about a dozen neighbors gathered near my driveway, taking photos and cheering softly. Mrs. Rodriguez even blew me a kiss. I immediately put up a small, hand-painted sign next to the entrance of my driveway. "The Suburban Osteology Series. Exhibit remains open. Deferment pending." Patrice drove by later that evening. She was moving at exactly 5 miles per hour. She didn't slow down, but she turned her head just enough for me to catch her eye. The look on her face was one of pure defeated acid. A silent acknowledgement that she had been outmaneuvered by the First Amendment and a very specific loophole concerning plastic pelvises. It was magnificent. It was, dare I say, art. The skeleton stayed. November melted into December, and I realized I couldn't just have them doing yoga forever. The installation needed to evolve. Barnaby the pirate now wore a tiny Santa hat and was engaged in a festive tug-of-war with a stuffed reindeer. The rigger of ribs held a massive ceramic bowl of eggnog, and come late January, the humorous in repose was wearing a tiny pair of heart-shaped glasses for Valentine's Day. My house became a local landmark, drawing respectful and often amused sightseers. I even occasionally found a dollar bill or a flower left on the pedestal of the dynamic tension of the deltoid. I guess all it takes to become an accidental artist in this country is a good code loophole, a solid contractor who will do anything for cash, and a truly dedicated neighborhood nemesis. The Suburban Osteology Series is not just an exhibit. It's a monument to the power of petty, dialogue-driven spite. And frankly, It's awesome.